Yeah, I put so many screws in this floor and it still creaks. So I've jumped a little ahead here. I've added my proximity sensor, my buttons. I've also got the LED strips here, and I've done quite a bit of work on the config file and other files in the system directory of the Duet 2. I still haven't yet connected my additional power supply, which will power up the laser module, but I'm not quite there yet. I've still got other things to do. I've also managed to drop my tangential knife and crack it on the edge there. It's a miracle it didn't crack anymore, so I will need to print another one of these. So a few things have changed. I've changed how I've set up the barrier blocks. I'm going to use a combination of 2 LED strips because I found that the yellow light just didn't look good enough when it was a combination of green and blue. How to make green and red. My art credentials may have flushed down the toilet there, but yellow is a primary colour and normally comes in a tube, and I'm not a painter. Instead, I learnt the lessons of a sculptor who only understood the world by touching and sometimes breaking parts of it. In this video I want to talk about the inputs to the Duet 2 when setting it up for CNC. And I've mentioned some of these already, such as the external trigger buttons and touch probe, but there are others. Some are essential, like the end stops for homing, and others are optional, like a safety door enclosure switch. But I will focus on the external triggers for now, which include a hard stop or emergency stop, pause and resume, and in fact anything you want to write into an external trigger file, which can be called when a push switch is pressed. This controller is still in the testing stage, and I also updated to the latest beta version of the RepRap firmware 3.2 beta 2 at the time of filming, and I want to make sure everything is behaving as I expect before transferring it to an enclosure where my life will become more difficult, because I'll be confined to working in a box, in a box, in a box, in a round box. So before I mention the changes from the previous video, just a reminder that there are links to timecodes in the description of this video and along the timeline itself, so you can find relevant sections more easily. The main changes from the previous video are that I had to move the relay module triggers from the PWM fan headers to the thermistor ones. This was because the latest version of the firmware has replicated the starting or booting behavior of fan 1 onto fan 2. This would have resulted in one of the relay modules momentarily turning on during startup and causing whatever was plugged in, like an extractor, to briefly turn on. That said, I then realized the thermistor headers were doing the same thing, but with not enough current to actually turn the relay on, but could turn it on if the ground potential changed for some reason. I'm now going to have to beg the programming priests on the Duet forum to revert this behavior, or share how to edit the bootloader on the Duet 2, which I think you can do on the Duet 3 via the web interface, but not on the Duet 2 at the moment. I also changed how I wired the buttons for the external triggers. On screen you can see from the previous video the 24 volt power loops to what will be the 5 trigger terminal pairs, which I've now changed using 2 24 volt and 3 ground, which go to 2 active high and 3 active low inputs on the 8-channel relay module. I'll start with these and talk about how they work and show you the relevant code in the system directory. The 24 volt power loops to normally close push switches. When the switch or button is connected and the system powered, the relay energizes and remains in that state until the button is pushed and the circuit opens. On the opposite side of the relay, I've connected the I/O and ground pins from the Duet.E2 stop header to what is the normally open and common terminals on the relay. Remember, when this is powered, the relay is energized, so the normally open terminal is actually normally closed. I've done this for 2 of the external triggers, while the other 3 are set up differently. I'll now show you the relevant code in the Config.g file for those 2 buttons. I set up the pin using the M950 command and labelled the GPIO, or general purpose in and out pin J1, assigning this to the pin name, which was duet.e2 stop. The J parameter during M950 refers to input pins, while P to output, F for fans and H for heaters. I then configured the external trigger so T0 or trigger 0, which caused an M112 emergency stop, is assigned to the GPIO1 or P1, and for the trigger to occur on the inactive to active edge of the signal, and for this to occur at any time the machine is on, R0. If I want the external trigger to only occur while a job is running, I change that to R1. Each input pin triggers an associated trigger file. On the Duet, the T0 external trigger refers to a M112 emergency stop, T1 to an M25 stop, while T2, T3 and onwards refers to files in the system directory labeled trigger2.g, trigger3.g and so on. And you can write whatever combination of G code you want in those. I've connected a raise button to use with the T0 emergency stop, because the E-stop should be the most accessible button when thinking about risk and how to avoid it. The yellow button, which will go next to the red one eventually, is flat and operates the T1 pause, although later I wrote a new pause script and called it T6, changing the behavior so a single press pauses the job and a second press cancels the job. Where it gets confusing is I have the relay module in between the push buttons and the Duet's input pins, and that there are two different methods of triggering on either side to consider. The push button with its normally closed switch triggers from an active to inactive, but the opposite side can be either active to inactive or inactive to active. If I pull out the E-stop cable either before or after the 8-channel relay module while the machine is on, it will be read as a trigger and alarm. I've wired them in a way that provides safety failsafe features and prevents the machine from operating if the trigger connections and something as critical as an emergency stop or pause are broken or disconnected. But if I reset the controller while the said wires are disconnected, I'd eventually access the web interface, where I could use the machine without the E-stop working. To get around this, I created a conditional script that is called into the Config.g file during the startup and queries the pin state. That can be either 1 or 0. 1 in this case is triggered or active, and 0 is untriggered or inactive. And I can check this using an M409 command. While the pin value of the general purpose input 0 is 1, display message and option S2 response, displaying only an OK blocking progress. If I now disconnect the E-stop and reset the controller, when I get to the web interface, the config.g file has loaded the conditional script which detects whether the E-stop is disconnected and forces me to address the error and prevents me from operating the machine. I also set up a similar condition to check the pause button. The other three buttons use active load triggers and normally open contact blocks. This results in the relay module only switching when the button is pressed, and the relay not being held in an energized state. One will be for an external trigger to resume from a pause, and the other two will be for toggling the output relay modules for the dust extractor and air filter. Simply put, you don't want to find out your E-stop doesn't work when you have to press it, because the risk of danger if that fails is high, so I've wired those buttons to include additional protection to prevent them failing unnoticed. But it doesn't matter so much with the others because their functions are less dangerous if they were to fail. I'll gloss over the possibility that the relay modules themselves might fail during the on state, which would mean all this might be for nothing, but I'm going to have a massive flap on the front of my power button, and that will only be 400mm away from the E-stop or hard stop. And essentially the other inputs like the touch probe, the proximity sensors for the axes, and this thing here which I'm using as a surrogate door switch, which is closed in this state and open in this state, all work with the same principles. They are slightly set up in different ways because, for example, these inputs are linked to individual stepper motors, and it makes more sense if I talk about those in relation to these and to share how I set the stepper motors up as well in a separate video. I've also made some progress with setting up new macros to automate the tool height process using the touch probe. Again, that's a lot of information to share. That will be another video. Also finally worked out how to toggle the relays on and off using a single button. So I'm going to cut this video short. I know I said I was going to do a few other things in it, but there's no point. It would make the video too long and I'll probably make mistakes in it, and some other things will probably change as well along the way. I'm at a good stage with this. I feel I'm very close to moving it over into the enclosure, but I want to just do a few more things to make sure that I don't need to do any fiddly work while it's in there. And that leaves me with the final thing to say, which is thanks again for watching.
Thanks again for watching. Thanks again for watching. Thanks again for watching.
Make sure to sacrifice a thumb to the algorithm gods, and you'll catch me in the next one.